And then it went through the dynastic era, people still ate it, and they still started, as will always the Egyptians do, they will invent things out of it, invent different types of food with it. They made sweets, they made Hab al-Aziz cakes in the dynastic era with honey.
That's very inspiring. It's almost like the very modern, healthy foods
Exactly.
that are very costly, by the way, and very delicious and very
healthy.
I mean, and recommended by nutritionists.
Doctors and nutritionists. You know, it's good you mentioned this, because I asked my friend one day to ask her, kind of expert in nutritious food and so on. I said, ask her about tiger nuts. See if that tiger nuts can be used in some, I don't know, diets and losing weight. And she asked her, and she went back to me with this answer. Yes, and it can work very nicely dealing with diet and losing weight. But of course, you have to check with your doctor. So tiger nuts in a tomb, which was studied by Kent Weeks, a very famous Egyptologist. I love his work. And he stayed over 30 years in Luxor. In his work, Luxor, he mentioned to us a tomb of an amazing Egyptian man called Rakhmi Ra. Rakhmi Ra tomb was summarized the Egyptian civilization in one tomb. You wanted to study the Egyptian civilization? Go to the tomb of Rakhmi Ra. And that's it, enough. Why? Everything you want to know about ancient Egypt, you'll find it there. You will find you want to study tiger nuts, you will find tiger nuts. You wanted to see how they, when it was dry, this particular tomb on the west bank of Luxor. You wanted to see a colored scene of a trunk of a tree used as a hone, where they are going to grind tiger nuts into flour, into flour, and then how the procedures of making it, and the end, the guy is holding the triangle-shaped cakes or bread with tiger nuts and honey. Step by step. Carvings of the statues, and after the statue is done, they are on kind of wooden beams, and they are kind of smoothing the surface of the statue. That's the last touches on the statue. You will see carpenters. You will see people coming from abroad. You will see animals coming from abroad given to Rakhmi Ra as a tribute. You will see a giraffe with a green monkey holding its neck. That's amazing scenes. You don't see amazing scenes like this in the royal tombs, because the royal tombs
it was not common to
exactly
to
royal
print
tombs are
such prints.
very kind of rigid tombs,
very
rigid
official
scenery. To me, so to me, Rakhmi Ra, not a king, not a pharaoh, not a man who ruled the country, but very important man with his titles. Ooh. Anyway, so we knew that went all the way until even Coptic Christian era. This is an edible food that the Egyptians loved all through their history, prehistoric and after historic. And till the black and white movies, when a very famous song came out about Hab al-Aziz that made Hab al-Aziz pretty famous.
That's one of the most traditious, I mean, it could not be taken as a meal, but snack for Egyptians. But like again to the sources of food, of course, flesh was, I mean, the main dish for them, if I could say. One of the elements that should be, they used to regard it as a must in their meal, and they could be, I mean, snacking on different light elements before they make their hunt. Or how did things go?
Step by step in history, as you are interested in the development of how people dealt with food and how the people dealt with hunting. Step by step, you get to this feeling that hunting and things like bull and cows and gazelles were always in famous and in luxurious tombs. But what about the public? So in a luxurious tomb in Saqqara, for example, you'll find a guy holding and like dragging his gazelles. Or somebody is bringing a gazelle to the deceased, the owner of the tomb. That's a gazelle, that's a goat. The beautiful horns, round horns, wow, very impressive, very luxurious, very rich. But how about you and me? How about the person who's walking down the street? Is he able, or was he able, to have a good spear made out of good metal or good stone that he can actually pierce a bull? Can he actually win a bull? Can he be fast enough to catch an ostrich? Here is a good thing that you can, out of the box. Let's go out of the box. That's me. I'm out of the box. I never lived in the box.
It might not be very attractive to vegetarian people,
There you go.
doesn't seem good at all. Or animal lovers, but whatever.
But you remember this business of ostrich when they started to sell it on supermarkets some years ago, but it seems
which is supposed to be banned.
It didn't quite catch with the Egyptians, I think. I love ostrich, but I love ostrich, the bird.
As a living creature.
As a living creature.
As a pet.
I don't eat lots of things. Yeah, exactly, as a pet. But I'm one of the people who look at rabbit.
We're becoming very subjective now.
I think rabbit is like
it's
a cat.
It's way out of the episode.
I don't eat rabbits.
I'm not supposed to say that. I really apologize. But when it comes to animals,
no. I mean, people, as you see, I mean, people are different, various all over the world. Of course, the history is like that. But the reason why I mentioned ostrich is that I was about to tell you that there is a scene which was drawn not on a tomb. It was drawn in the open. So the person who drew it, we don't know who, but it seems the person who drew it it's a genius. To me, it's more important than the scene of Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings. Why? Because it's showing us a guy literally flying, literally on the air like that, with actually with a bow and an arrow, and he's stretching. And there is an ostrich going towards him with its wings spread. I thought that was like a good National Geographic photo, because the second that this scene has been captured needed a camera eye person, because to me that looked like an ambush. Talking of how they got their food, that's an ambush, because if he was running after the ostrich will be giving its back to the hunter. But the scene is showing you that it is going right towards him. So it seems that he ambushed it in a way, and he's like jumping from somewhere. Also the control of his bow and arrow while he's in the air, if my theory is right, and how are you going to get this ostrich? The feathers will be used, nothing will go in vain. Everything will be used. And that's another thing about ancient people. Ancient people
that created industry.
Exactly. Papyrus. You think papyrus, or some people would think papyrus paper. Wrong. Papyrus made sandals in ancient Egypt. It made baskets in ancient Egypt. It made reeds in ancient Egypt. And here is the coming one. And the root was burnt, turned into ashes, covered, trying to cure youth pimples.
Pimples, acne.
So nothing goes in vain. Now, you are talking about how the food was used for good and for healthy reasons.
Healthy and for industry, and created other, venues, like industry. But the reason I'm asking, not only because not to talk about myself, I'm totally objective, but the thing is that it not only focused on animals and the killing of an animal, but just to know if there were chances to have different types of food. Humans are humans. They could be getting bored out of a certain type of food. I could have a choice of eating something sweet, something sour, something bitter,
spicy,
something spicy, a fruit or a piece of vegetable.
Something hard, something delicate.
Right. So, and these are natural, organic things. They were present even back then at that time, not only at our time. So how did things work? like that.
To do that, my dear, you needed two things. To do this business of luxury of choosing, or the luxury of feeling bored. Here's a good sentence for you. The luxury of feeling bored. Some people don't have this luxury.
Of course.
Some people don't have the luxury of being bored of beans and falafel, and like, for example. Still tasty and beautiful, but if you keep on eating it every day, yes, you will get bored.
And that's why the industry of creating more than a recipe from beans and falafel
out of the same
came
thing.
Out.
Exactly.
Different, delicious
you are correct.
Dishes of food out of falafel.
Out of one, yes, exactly. Out of the available, number one. And out of the cheap, that's number two, or put it number one. So I need cheap food, and I need it to be available. And then I will never be bored, because boredom will make me think of inventing things. Like, for example, we thought of tiger nuts to be eaten like we eat it, like a few years ago when it was beside the guy who's selling lupin. Remember the guy with the lupin thermos, and always with, or lupin, if you go to Tanta, where the Sayyid al-Badawi, and you will always eat there the tiger nuts. By the way, Spain now, as we speak, sell tiger nuts juice as we speak now, called shofa. Check shofa, guys. C-H-U-F-A or double F-A. Shofa is literally and practically the juice of tiger nuts, the juice of Hab al-Aziz in Spain. And they will put it in, and there is a picture which shows that put it in a big glass, and it's like a milky thing. It's like a milky color. But going back, so yes, they took tiger nuts, they made bread out of it, and they made cakes, and they made sweet cakes. Why? Because it's available, it's cheap, it grows wild, and it is on the riverbank. Excellent stuff. Bread. So, agriculture, wheat and barley. And you will notice very much that in tombs of the mayor of so-and-so in ancient Egypt, the priest of so-and-so in ancient Egypt, you'll always find this scene of the farmers, of the harvest, barley and wheat. Always barley and wheat. And then they will grind it in grinders, and they will turn it into flour, and they will make. Mark Lenner, in his amazing book, The Complete Pyramids, surprised me lately.
Right.
Even though the book was like in front of me for years, and I always keep taking information from as a source that I respect, is talking about how it was less glutinous food.
Oh, really?
Than us. If,
very sophisticated.
If not gluten at all. Very sophisticated medical stuff.
And the whole world now is directed towards gluten-free food and the plant-based diet.
Exactly.
And that's also another thing that I wanted to embark on, which is the seeds, the important spices, the essential, they're very healthy for different disease, curious spices and all that stuff. But of course, this came with the development of the life process of the Egyptians. But let's talk about the gluten-free, the fat-free, the organic whatever. And these things that are now discovered by Europeans and the top nutritionists of the world were taken very as a usual daily routine by the old Egyptians.
Ask me, when was the last time or the first time you read an article titled gluten?
How did they know about gluten?
They did. As a matter of fact, the business of the food was like this. So the additions that you add, but also gluten is inside the seed itself, is inside the food itself that you're eating. Gluten, it doesn't have to be things like you're adding. But when you are talking about, like for example, bread, because we're talking flour, we're talking wheat and flour and wheat and so on, and he's surprising me by less glutinous bread or wheat. And you will be amazed to know, since you are interested in this business of inventions, how did they invent, how did the ancient Egyptians invent something out of one thing so that it doesn't get bored or it can be a variety to him? In the New Kingdom, they studied 40 types of bread in ancient